I realize we're talking about the LA riots a lot, but I think there needs to be a bigger discussion about rioting in general and the attention that it receives. Gavin Newsom put out a video last night that I thought was abhorrent. So abhorrent that I don't even want to play it here. I can characterize what he said, but yesterday I spent the opening monologue complaining about how Gavin Newsom just wants attention, and I don't know, I feel like playing that, even though we're going to talk about him, playing that video just gives him more of that attention. But the LA riots are continuing to go on, and Governor Gavin Newsom is continuing to gain in popularity amongst the 10% of people who think rioting is a good idea. Now, yesterday, Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, instituted an 8 p.m. curfew, which is weird because, I don't know, I've been told by Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass that, well, there's no emergency that warrants the National Guard being in town, so I don't know why they would put a curfew in place. The libs have also been talking about this new talking point that I thought was fascinating. MSNBC was talking about it, and a bunch of the lib outlets were talking about it earlier this morning on the show. Well, look, LA is a big place, and all the violence is only happening in 1 square mile. It's just a small, most of LA is fine. To which I would say, let's use your other argument against you. Well, what about January 6th? If you go to the Smithsonian, oh, look, the Smithsonian is fine. Nothing's going on, just stuffed tigers and artwork. It was fine then. Again, mostly here we're just talking about the logic of their argument. But the one thing that I've noticed that I think is fascinating to see just from a 30,000 foot view perspective is who rioters, Freudian slip there, but I also think it makes sense in this context, who rioters actually are. It seems to me that rioters are a segregated class. If you've noticed, it seems to only exclusively be rich liberals and poor people. The rich liberals who are delusioned into the fact that the rioting is going to do something, and the poor people who don't know any better and think it'll actually help. What I'm trying to say is that middle-class people of all races and lifestyles don't riot. At least that's what I'm seeing, and I'd be curious if you think any different, tpt@tpusa.com. But at the end of the day, the riots in Los Angeles are indicative of how progressives see the United States of America, and the fact that Gavin Newsom is trying to corner that market leads me to believe, one, that he's solely in it for attention, but two, is missing the boat big time because the majority of Americans don't like what they are seeing. I know we've talked about the LA riots a lot, but it continues to be a massive story. And here to comment on that and so much more is functional health practitioner among bodybuilder, Steve Kuklo. Guy, thanks, man, for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Joe Bob. Always an honor to be on here and chop it up with you a little bit.
So, to kind of get back on this LA thing and to the viewers, I promise we're going to talk about other things minus the LA riots because everybody's been talking about it nonstop. But yesterday was a turning point, if you will. Karen Bass said, hey, there's an 8 o'clock curfew, and then police officers were arresting anybody outside minus press. Steve, I was told that the riots were not bad enough to send in federal reinforcements, but also there's a curfew because it's so bad people can't be out at night. Can you help square that for me, or am I taking crazy pills?
No, so you got to question the leaders. Like, are they just MIA on this, or are they complicit of what's going on? That's like, you got to start asking questions. And then Newsom coming on, when he had that interview with Charlie a few months back, like we all kind of thought, man, he's got a little bit of common sense in there. This guy could be in the middle. And then all of a sudden, this happens, and it just proves that was all a show. And this guy has no, I don't think enough brain power, let alone fortitude to run our country. Like, he wanted to be a presidential candidate. He has big aspirations. And this just shows you that there's no way that this guy could run America how majority of America, we're going to say 60 to 70% of what Americans will want America to be. If he's going to allow this to happen under his watch, this is just really, it's terrible. It's terrible for the people that are just, hardworking Americans that are putting in your, the hours, your 8-hour jobs, your 8 to 4s, your people that are trying to just travel down the highway, and then they got it shut down, protesting and causing havoc and ruining police cars. And, I worked as a firefighter for the city of Dallas for 10 years. So I was a first responder, and I understand, working with the public and then how outrage happens, and one can turn to two, turns to four, and it just goes crazy. It spreads like wildfire, literally. No pun intended. Being out in California, I mean, this is a different version of their wildfire, but
Yeah.
um, you know, the protests just seem like it's nothing new. It's like they just keep trying to replay this old play out of their playbook over and over again to try to create this. Nothing's working. So like, oh, we'll just recycle. It's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys running the same play over and over and over. We expect them to, score, and they don't score. And we're, as a Cowboys fan, you're banging your head against the table. Like, what is going on here? But it's time. I think they're at that point. That's the saying, like, F around and find out. Well, they effed around, and they're about to find out with, the kind of bringing in some military presence and whatnot. And it obviously, for local authorities, it is a lot. And it's, at the end of the day, these guys are human. These guys want to go home to their families at night.
Yeah.
And if it means like, hey, we gotta ultimately protect the greater good of the people that are, just trying to live normal life and not have a couple, whether it's illegals and then people that are getting paid to run around the streets and burn stuff down. It's about time we just put an end to this. Like, I'm all for protests, but these are far from peaceful, as you know.
Yeah, of course. Nobody likes riots. Mostly peaceful protests, but also fiery for some reason. That's an age-old saying that we are now accustomed to mockery. You also mentioned Gavin not being super smart. He actually admitted that on Charlie's show. He's like, oh, look, I got a really terrible score on the SAT. Like, yes, Gavin, we know. The video I also was talking about yesterday that he posted, and again, I don't want to play it because I don't want to put his face on people's screens because I think people will turn the TV off. But he basically said, you could be just sitting on the corner and ICE will pick you up based on your race, which is like, dude, you're trying to start a race war just for attention. Like that's horrible. And unfortunately, I think it's spread outside of California. Here's a video from a clip from Savannah Hernandez, a Frontlines reporter who, by the way, was supposed to be a guest yesterday and had to cancel last minute, abandoned the show in our time of greatest need. But I'm glad she did because she went to New York specifically for this. Watch this. The irony, it might actually physically hurt. Go ahead and play clip 4.
But I have a kid. If I don't, and these people are having their children taken and their parents. What about my kids? I need my dog.
Look at this.
That's what happens to my kids. I can't help you. But you can if you could just move off the way.
You're not going to.
How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing peaceful? No, it's not.
How do you as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work. I care so much.
So you don't care about stopping black people from going to work?
Look at this line that you guys are causing. I'm not causing no problems. I'm not trying to. We're just trying to leave.
I probably should have set that up a little bit, but that is white liberals in New York City protesting by keeping black people from moving, kidnapping black people, if you will. I might be able to categorize it like that if you kind of look at it more objectively. Steve, this unfortunately looks like it's going to expand. How do conservatives respond to that? How did the Trump administration respond to that? What should we do in light of the protests, the riots kind of expanding further than we want?
Might be an unpopular opinion, but if they happen in Texas, we got big trucks, and I don't think a few people standing in the way are going to stop people from maybe running them over. I've had I work with a lot of guys, and I was having a conversation this morning, and we were talking about that. And they're like, man, if these guys were in the highway blocking the road and I got my big truck, he goes, I'm just going. I'm not stopping. So not saying that's the right way to go about it, but again, if it's becoming a nuisance to the public, if it's causing people, preventing them from getting to work, like you've mentioned, like, I don't think these people have jobs. So that's why we're figuring out these must be getting paid to be out here. And normal people that are working in 8 to 4 work, have families doing things. They don't have time to go out and protest and, make these signs and act a fool. And it just seems like at this point, we should just schedule the weekly riot, like whether it's like Taco Tuesday, then why does we call it like Tire Fire Thursday, something like that.
Tire Fire Thursday. Yeah, that'd be great. Like, hey, we've got a designated rioting zone for you. It is a 1,000 square foot park over here. Go ahead and do all of your rioting over there. Leave us normal people alone, and that's how it'll work.